All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Sylvester Inspires Belief Cast. Thank you once again for all your support, and I'm so excited once again, like I always am. I have an amazing guest on today. His name's Malakai Matangi. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I can't wait for you guys to hear his amazing story and what he's been through and how he's turned his life around. It's pretty fascinating. I do need to give a shout out to our sponsor, Veracity Networks. Thank you for believing in me, and thank all of you for believing in me and listening and sharing this with people. The feedback's been overwhelming, and this has helped a lot of people, and the stories that have been shared on here have just inspired thousands and thousands of people, but it's also inspired me every time to be a good person and to be better. But Malakai, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
A little background on Malakai. He's a father of 9. He's got 9 kids, which is pretty amazing. He's an ex-convict and ex-drug addict, and I can't wait to hear that story. He's been clean now for 3.5 years, and he says he's on the best spiritual journey of his life right now, and we'll get into that as well. But he's done some amazing things. He's got a great aura about him, very soft-spoken, good spirit about him, and so I'm excited to have you on to share.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about where you grew up, where you're from, and a little bit about your family.
So I grew up in Magna, Utah.
Okay.
I only have three siblings, 2 brothers and 1 sister. I've got very cool parents that I'm now close with. I've never been close to my parents before, but
So growing up, you weren't close to them?
no, not too close with my parents. In the islands, they have like a traditional way of raising kids.
Talk about that for a minute. And where's your parents from?
My parents are from the islands of Tonga. So the tradition is basically the men, they kind of hide their feelings. They hide their feelings away from their kids, or it's kind of hard for them to express their love. And nowadays, my father, he hasn't showed me any type of love until maybe I was older.
Right.
I've never seen love from a father before, but the teachings, we thought, growing up, that's the love. And he would always say, I'm teaching you this lesson because I love you.
Oh, gotcha.
But to actually feel the love, it probably wasn't there.
Okay, like less expressive, where hugs and
yes, sir.
telling you in your ear I love you and that kind of stuff wasn't as common.
Right.
Okay.
So that wasn't common growing up, and it would probably feel awkward now, but
yeah. So did that bother you as a kid, feeling that a little separation there?
No, it didn't really bother me at all, but looking back at it, now being older, I wish I probably could have felt that from my father a little bit more.
Okay.
But I think that's just the way they try to raise their kids to become a man.
Yeah, well, they were doing the best with what they knew. Right? And that's what all of us parents do. We're just like, you're a parent now of 9.
Right.
We're just doing our best, right? At the end of the day, I'm sure we're making mistakes every day.
Yeah, right.
But we're trying to just do the best with what we know.
Yes, sir.
So when you were growing up, did you have a rough childhood, in the sense that were you kind of a rough kid? Were you out doing some things you shouldn't be doing?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff?
So my parents taught me well, and they always taught me the right things to do. And but I chose not to do it. It wasn't that their teaching was awesome. Their teaching was telling me the right and wrong. But growing up, I was always influenced by my friends and others.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to fit in a crowd, whether it's the crowd of my family or the crowd of my friends at school.
Okay.
So growing up was a little bit difficult because my parents say don't smoke, but my friends say smoke. And then I end up, I'm just trying to fit in
so you start smoking with your friends.
I would rather listen to my friends than listen to the teachings of my parents. So.
How young were you when you, started smoking with your friends?
I started smoking at the age of 11.
Okay.
And it kind of sucks to say, because I know when I speak about that, people might think, oh, what a bad parents that he had. But honestly, my parents was awesome. I was just a bad child.
Yeah.
You know, I made
Well,
bad
and I
decisions.
think most people would understand that. I mean, I'm sure your parents aren't at age 11. Go ahead and smoke.
Right.
You just were being defiant.
Yes,
and,
sir.
Yeah. Was it just cigarettes, or was it pot, or what was it at that time?
It started at pot at that time.
Okay, at 11.
Yes, sir.
So talk us through there. You start doing that at 11, and just talk us through where that led to.
So I started doing pot at 11, and like I said, just trying to fit in, trying to belong to something, to somewhere. Because at that time, I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be the cool kid, and so I started smoke pot, and anything that bad came along, people thought it was cool. So I ended up doing that. So like pot, and then drinking a little bit of alcohol here. So I think that was the core of my addiction, was me not being true to myself.
Right.
Me trying to fit into or create this image of myself so people could like me.
Right.
And by me doing that, my addiction just went even deeper, getting older and having kids, and
yeah,
it just got even worse from there.
So talk us through. So you start at age 11, and obviously it progresses, and now talk us like when you're in high school, and I think most kids can relate with this, that we all want to fit in.
Right.
And unfortunately, sometimes we'll do anything to fit in, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you were just saying. So talk about high school. Were you active at all in like maybe sports or anything like that growing up, doing that? Did that help you connect at all, or?
Yeah, so I was active before I hit high school. I was active in sports, football in Magna at Cypress.
Okay.
So I was playing football there with my family, which was a good thing. And I was still doing bad here and there, but it wasn't as bad. I had good influences, whatever the crowd is doing, I'm going to move with it. So if my family's doing good, I'm going to do good for a period of time. But growing up, when I went to high school, that only lasted for a year, and I ended up dropping out. I had a kid at the age of 15. I was 15 years old when I had a kid, so I ended up dropping out. But I sloughed all my ninth year, my freshman year, so just because I was just trying to fit in with the crowd I was going with.
Right.
And so
you dropped out at age 15?
Yeah.
Is that sophomore year or freshman year?
I think sophomore year.
Sophomore, okay.
Yes,
so you end up having a child at age 15.
Had a child at age 15, and I started working.
How did your parents handle that at the time when, you're still just this pup, you're a little kid, right? How did they handle the news of that? And did they support you dropping out? Did they expect you at that point you should start working, or?
Well, at that point, my parents say, if you want to do grown-up things, you need to do grown-up things. You got a child on the way, you need to start working, so that's
one of those lessons
one of those lessons, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So basically, I had to start working, and so I ended up finding a job, a construction job, and I worked, and I was trying to support the best I could, but
So did you end up keeping the child? Meaning, because a lot of times kids that young that have a kid, because you're still a kid, end up usually giving up for adoption or whatever. But you kept the kid.
Yes, the mother kept the kid. They took the kid away from me. So because at that age I was 15, and the mother was quite older than me. She was already out of high school. Okay. So their family was kind of embarrassed, I think, and took my daughter and her family away. So
I see. So you drop out at 15, and then did you just start working? So you didn't finish like your junior or senior year, it sounds like.
Yeah, I didn't finish. I didn't finish school. I just kept working, and then
were you still partying and stuff at that time
sir.
too?
And then I just jumped from a relationship to another relationship, and
again trying to find a place to fit in, right?
Just trying to find a place to fit in.
How did you feel? Because obviously people heard the news that you got this woman pregnant, and how did you handle that? Was that tough? Did people maybe treat you differently because of that, or? No.
Well, at that age, I thought I was cool. I thought I was bigger than any boy in the school. I'm having a kid at a young age, so it kind of made at that age, I thought, oh yeah, I'm a man, you know. So
Yeah.
so my ego and everything just blew up after that, and I thought I was bigger and better and better than. I was actually the cool kid because everybody would be like, "Oh man, you're about to be a dad at a young age," and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that age, it was, I thought everybody was trying to fit in with me at that time. So
Right. Did your parents at that time also know that you were doing drugs and stuff and drinking? And
yes,
did they know that?
my parents knew I was, and I got beat plenty of times from my parents.
Yeah.
That Tongan love, that's what they call it, Polynesian love. It's not, it's more with the belt.
Really?
So I've got beat plenty of times.
Did you take it as that back then, like that this was love? I mean,
I took it as a lesson that they're trying to teach me,
right.
but I couldn't really take it as love because I was getting beat, So
Well, but yeah, you're getting beat, but then you continue doing drugs, right? So you
Right.
weren't getting the lesson.
right, I wasn't really getting the lesson.
Were you nervous, thinking? "God," I mean, I would imagine you were trying to hide it from him because you probably didn't want to get
Right,
that love,
right,
that Tongan love you were talking about, right?
yeah. So I tried to hide it, but questions are gonna be asked, especially on her side too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your belly's getting bigger, and what's
Yeah.
going on?
Right.
And you're not married, and so it arose to a point where I had to say it out in front of my parents
Mhm.
and her parents.
Yeah.
So because they were part of the church. So
Yeah.
one Sunday, we all met up downstairs, and for a 15-year-old boy, actually saying, "Hey," telling my parents and her parents that she's about to have our
Yeah.
kid was rough.
Boy, that's
Yeah.
tough. That's tough at any age, but let alone,
Right.
I mean, as a young kid, so much tougher. Well, so let's jump ahead. You obviously continue doing drugs and this and that.
Mhm.
Where did that lead to after you had this child? Talk about that.
It led to me to another relationship and had more kids, but still under the influence doing drugs on the side. So
Mhm.
it just led to a relationship. So basically the history is I have 4, they call it baby mamas, but it's 4 women that I had pregnant and that carried my kid.
Okay.
So, and majority of all of them was due to the fact because me getting high, and every single time a bad relationship happens, I always blame the women, but in honest reality, it was never them. It was always me.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, I was always trying to say, oh yeah, she was the bad person,
Yeah.
trying to save my image or whatever.
Yeah, and trying to make
because-
yourself feel better.
Yes, and
It's someone else's fault.
it's someone else's
instead
fault.
of taking accountability.
Yes, sir.
And it sounds like now you take full accountability.
Yes, sir, for everything.
Wow. And I point that out because that is such a powerful thing for anyone, especially in addiction, that typically in the beginning we are pointing fingers. It's it's this person's fault, or it's God's fault, or
Right.
it's my boss's fault, or it's my parents' fault. And when we do that, when we play that victim role, it keeps us in that unhealthy behavior,
Yes, sir.
right? Until we start saying, okay, no, I've got to be accountable. This is all me, kind of thing. So I'm glad you brought that up.
All right.
Yeah. So it leads to, as so you're in and out of some relationships, you're having some kids. Is things just getting worse and worse for you on the drug use?
Yeah, so things just get worse. The more kids I'm getting, is the worse it's getting. So I'm trying to. At that point, I had most of my kids. So at that point, I'm trying to provide. I'm trying to be the man.
Mm-hmm.
What the man role is,
Right.
to provide for their family. So I started digging myself into a bigger pit in that drug world, where I was never home. I was always out getting high, thinking that I'm gonna come home with $1 million. So, hoping that I'm gonna make it somewhere in that drug life. But
Right.
it was more so an excuse for me. I feel like it was more so an excuse for me to keep going out there and getting high,
Yeah.
and not thinking about what I'm doing, and not trying to take responsibility, but the mind was there for me,
Yeah.
because I would always leave my kids with my parents, and I'm saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna go and try to get some money, this and that, and yeah, I was always just lying.
How old were you at this point?
When it started getting really, really bad, I think it was 22,
Okay.
22, 23.
22, 23. Yeah. So you've been through a lot already. It's still a young kid,
Right.
young adult. And so, you mentioned, we mentioned it early on in the bio that you're an ex-convict.
Yes, sir.
You had to serve some time in prison.
Right.
Let's talk about what led up to that and what happened there.
So in 2014, I was so lost in this addiction of mine. One day I woke up and I had no drugs, nothing to help me get money because it was taken when I woke up.
Right.
Family member had took it away from me when I
Oh,
woke
really?
up. Yeah, because they took it away because they cared.
Yeah.
They cared about what I was doing.
But you're probably upset at the time.
And I was upset.
Yeah.
So basically, me being an addict, what I want to do is just get mad. And, I didn't see what they were trying to do to see the help.
Right.
All I see is the slap in the face, but I didn't see the helping hand that they were trying to give me, which kind of led me to leave the home. And I took off and I made a poor decision. I had ended up going into a place and robbing a place, and then that day I can never go back to that day and make it all up to the people that I could have harmed or traumatized. I do regret that day, but then at the same time, that day saved the rest of my life. Me going through that, I feel so bad. The people that was there,
right,
that had to go through it, they didn't deserve to go through something like that. But if they, hopefully they are listening, and hopefully they do hear this. But
yeah,
I pray every day that they are healed.
Yeah.
Because I know they didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
But I try to move forward from it, and it's kind of hard, but because I would like to reach out to them, and I just don't know how to.
Well, maybe one of the blessings they will hear this today.
Right.
And they'll hear your story and where you're at. And I can see your emotion on this. And so did you end up getting arrested from this?
Yes.
I'm assuming, yeah.
Yeah, so I got arrested, and it was all over the news. That's something not to brag about, because my kids ended up seeing that. And so at that time I already had exes of kids, but I had the kids at my parents' house.
Right.
So their family seen the news, and she came down from California and took the kids, and so that's where that journey of trying to get better began, is when I walked into them walls. But at first it was still kind of cloudy. My thought process was still kind of cloudy. I'm walking into a place where I'm thinking that everybody's there to get you, or people are going to be there to hurt you. And so I go in with the mentality like, oh, I got to be the bad person. I got to be the tough guy.
And we're talking about when you're entering into prison.
Sir.
Yeah.
So
you got sentenced to a 2-year sentence, is that right? Or
yes. So at first it was me, the process of fighting the case.
Oh, okay.
So when I went in there, I had to fight the case.
Gotcha.
They ended up transferring my case to a federal, to the federal system, and then I had my rights violated in the federal system, so they had to dismiss it without prejudice. And this has been going on for a year, and I came back to the state and kept fighting it there, And then the day came where, for some reason, I felt that I need to start owning up to my response, to owning up to the things that I did.
Yeah.
And because the whole time I was fighting it, I was denying it. I was denying, no, that wasn't me. I was trying to find loopholes in my discovery, and
Again,
also,
blaming other people.
right, trying to
and
blame
things.
other people and other
Yeah.
things. So I was not trying to go down for this. So I kept fighting it with a lie. So basically, that was my shield. I was shielding myself with the lie that I had created for myself,
Wow.
saying I was in the neighborhood because of this type of thing, and I kept that, and almost to me believing that it was true. But
Yeah. Sure.
but then the day came, and my attorney had came with me with a plea offer, and my significant other now, Jamie, she was out there in the courtroom, and I just told her to go tell her that I'm gonna take the deal. For some reason, something had answered me and told me it's time to tell the truth.
Really?
So when I went up there, I took the plea deal, but then the judge asked me, are you pleading guilty to these charges, which they charged me with aggravated robbery. The moment I said the moment I said yes was the moment I felt free than anything else.
Wow.
So it was, as soon as I told him that I am guilty, I felt so much weight just fall off my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I that's when I told myself I'm not gonna lie no more.
Wow.
Because every single time I lied, I felt like I was carrying too much, and it was just so much work.
Right. It's exhausting.
Right. So after that, she had sentenced me to prison. They sentenced me to 1 to 15, and then Draper, they have a board system that makes you, they actually give you how long you're gonna do.
Mm.
So when traveling to Draper, I kept praying and just trying to look for some answers for my life. And the crazy thing is when you go to Draper, you go through this system called RNO, where you're locked down for 24 hours a day.
Mm.
And you're locked in a cell by yourself or with one other person. But
Right.
that's where I did a lot of soul searching, and I found, in my spiritual journey, I found the Book of Mormon.
Mm.
And all my other families, they are LDS, except for my parents.
Okay.
So
you kind of knew a little bit about the
yes,
religious.
I knew a little bit about it.
Yeah.
My aunt, my dad's aunts and everybody, they would tell me to go to the church and this and that, and I would always go against the grain, so I would never listen. And but when I went inside the cell, there was a Book of Mormon in there. I have 23 hours.
Yeah. You're like,
So what I do, I pick it up, and first it just said say a prayer and ask, just in the introduction of the Book of Mormon. I don't know if anybody has read it, but in the beginning it says, if you want to know if this is true, kneel and ask your Heavenly Father. So I already mentioned that I dropped out of school.
yeah.
I knelt down and I prayed and I asked if it was true. Every single book that I used to read before while I was locked up, I couldn't read it all due to the fact my mind wouldn't stay there.
Yeah.
Every single time I start reading, my mind ponders, and I don't even know what book I read,
Yeah.
But as soon as I started reading the book, it was almost like seeing it out of a TV. That's how clear it was in my mind.
Wow.
So I started reading that, and I've never had a book do this to me where I'm so zoned in and I could see everything that's happening. It's very vivid in my mind. So every day, I wouldn't even want to go out, leave my cell. I'm already stuck in my cell for 23 hours.
Yeah.
And when that
time.
hour comes out, I'm like, no, I just would rather stay here and just keep reading.
Keep reading, really.
But I was in RNO for maybe 60 days, and then they let me back out to a general population.
Right.
But that's where the spiritual journey began, and it's just amazing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take it back for anything else.
So was this at the beginning of your stay there when you had that experience?
Stay. Yes, sir. And
then you were there, is it 2 years that you were in there for? So were you just like, I mean, obviously you had this kind of spiritual awakening, if we can call it that.
Right.
Were you just like, here you are in prison, but you're probably going, this is the greatest thing I've ever felt in my life, right?
Right.
Talk about that for a minute. So you ended up feeling this for the next couple of years, I would imagine.
Right. So, while I was in there, I spent a lot of time with myself in a cell. I learned. So this is what helped me, and is actually still helping me with my recovery. Is I started to love myself. I started to be true to myself. And me being in there actually helped me shed all this lies that I built when I was a kid.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm a bad person, or I'm this type of guy. No, being in there actually helped me, because there is some tough guy sceneries in there.
Oh, sure.
And when I was encountered by those type of things, it's easy for me to be part of that, or I could just step away. And making those small decisions was actually helping me shed away all them other things. So
yeah, because normally you'd probably protect yourself and confront, right. But you did the bigger thing and walked away.
Right, walking away and learning that whatever my friends had to do with their friends, I don't need to be a part of it. Yeah. So it actually helped me not to be influenced by anybody else.
How did the inmates treat you by doing that? Like, here you are walking away. I mean, did you, because that could be a form of a sign of weakness, right? But I mean, we all know honestly that's true strength.
That is true.
But in a prison setting, I mean, how did the inmates handle, seeing you walk away from this, tough situation?
So the most of the prisoners, some of them, they're still stuck to some kind of code, or but majority of them actually, they could see if you're pure and true. They would respect someone that's really true to themselves than anything else.
Okay.
So that's when I started to when I looked up to my family members, and my family members has been doing that for a very long time.
Yeah.
And one of my family members just came back home after doing 23 years in prison, and he was basically my role model as growing up.
Okay.
Him and all his other, but these are my dad's little brothers. So they were my role models because I wanted to be like them, the bad person. And one day I had wrote a letter when I was in there. I had wrote a letter to him, and I had told him, hey, I found out the hard way that I've been lying to myself and lying to you guys of how I am, and
yeah.
I just want to let you know that this is not my life, And the response I get back from that is, he said, whatever you are in life, just do it 100%.
Yeah.
And that will just let everybody know that who I am,
Yeah.
And so that was pretty refreshing to hear.
Oh, I bet.
So helping myself out with the recovery, I started doing things as in working out. Before I used to weigh 300 plus pounds, but
really?
Working out, yes, sir.
Yeah, because I'm shocked when you say that, because I mean, if people saw you right now, I mean, you're in great shape. You look amazing.
Right, thank you.
So I can't picture you 300.
Right. So I started I started investing in myself. I started loving myself.
Yeah.
And
What?
how I did that to invest in myself, I started working out first.
Yeah.
Then I started reading more books. At the same time, reading the Book of Mormon, but reading books to help me, like in drug addiction books. I started taking all these other classes, relationship classes. So everything I started doing while I was in there was just helping me.
Yeah.
Told myself I'm not gonna waste my time here. I am gonna pay my due to society.
Yeah.
I will pay that debt because they
Yeah.
owe it so much, and I will walk out here a better man.
Yeah.
So I had a board hearing, and usually at the board hearings, from what I know and from what I heard from everybody else, everybody asked to go home. But the board members had asked me, do you want to go home? And I just told the board members, I said, that's up to you guys to decide. If you guys want to give me more time, I'm okay with it. And if you guys were to let me out tomorrow, I'm okay with it. Due to the fact these years that I had put in was not going to waste. You know?
Yeah, because you're thriving right now.
Yes, sir.
Right? Like you're thriving in this moment.
Right.
You're like, hey, if you want me to stay, I'm perfect where I'm at.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing. They're probably blown away by that response.
Yeah, and my parents were there, and it's when that's the day I actually seen the love of my father, is when he cried. He cried when I told the board members, if they want to let me out, that is totally up to them, but I'm okay.
Wow.
In my addiction, my mother was even afraid of me coming home.
Yeah.
But that day, she knew something was different with me.
Yeah.
Because I'm no longer begging for what I want.
Wow. You were surrendering.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah, I surrendered because I took AA classes in there, and
yeah.
I had a therapist in there, and
yeah.
But I would always tell my therapist I love the AAs more than anything else. Therapist, to me, I believe couldn't help me out because I would rather learn from someone that's walked the shoes.
Yeah.
Not from anybody that had read it through a book.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Yeah, there's a book that could tell you what it does to you and everything, but there's something deep down in the soul that it really breaks.
Yeah.
Which I don't think a book could ever make that person feel.
Right.
So being in there, I enjoyed listening to other people's stories. And they really are motivating.
Was that like once a week, or was it every day? Those meetings that you could go to there, or was it?
Yeah, so there was once a week.
Once a week. Gotcha. Okay.
But there was different. There was LDS, 12-step.
Different versions of it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it was.
So, did you tell your parent? I mean, when they came to that board meeting to see if they're going to let you out or make you stay longer, had your parents known at this point that you were having kind of like this spiritual breakthrough?
Yeah.
So they had known. I mean, you probably wrote them letters and stuff and told them what was going on. Is that?
Well, I haven't talked to. When the whole time in there, I had never tried to talk to my family.
Oh, okay.
But when I called Jamie, she would try to be at my parents' house when I called, or when we had a visit online, just FaceTiming, and she would be at my parents' house. That's the only time I would talk to my parents, but they never knew what was really going on with me. Because I didn't want to give them false. I didn't want them to you know, like tell them what I'm doing, and then they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, we'll see."
He's gonna let us down again.
Yeah, he's gonna let us down. So
Yeah.
I didn't want that feeling or want them
Okay.
to feel that way.
Yeah.
So, so that day, I think they really did. My parents, like I said, it's kind of it's rare to see my father cry. You know,
Yeah.
he cries at funerals for loved ones, and
Yeah.
but then for me, it was kind of rare. And
Yeah.
to see that was
And how healing that was for you too, to see
Right.
your dad going, man, he really does.
right,
It was almost like you've been waiting for that your whole life,
right,
right? Like I
Right.
finally got this confirmation. Yeah, he really does love me.
right,
You know, that's what I'm feeling over here as you're
Yeah.
saying this. It's so powerful.
right. So it was actually pretty cool, and that's
So did they let you out or did they make you stay longer?
they ended up letting me out.
Okay.
So they ended up letting me out, and
Well, again, they were probably surprised that, you know, because like you said, most people are like, yeah, get me out of
Yeah.
here.
most people
And
were
you were
asking
just
to go
like,
home.
I'll do whatever you guys want.
Right,
That's you surrendering.
right,
And I want to bring this point up because, you know, those who are struggling with whether it's an addiction or any bad habit, when we finally surrender, that's when the healing starts, truly. Like when we finally go, okay, enough's enough. The way I'm doing it isn't working.
right,
And I'm done blaming other people. I've got to now take accountability,
right,
and I'm going to surrender to this process.
right.
That's what I'm hearing from you, but that's really powerful.
Yeah, surrendering,
Yeah.
I think, to me, is the key.
Yeah.
And just loving yourself, you know? Like, I wake up every morning and look, there's still this little part that wants to be influenced, but then I got to shut it down,
Right.
you know? Like,
You catch it.
yes, I catch it.
Right.
And I say, wait a minute, I can't fall back to habits like that or anything.
Yeah.
So, that's the biggest one for me, is that I found love within myself. Like, I love who I am now,
Yeah.
you know, and I can't believe I tried to be someone else for that long, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I hid this person away from everybody, you know, and people, my family say, oh yeah, you're awesome now, you know, and
Yeah.
I just,
Well, you were awesome back then too. Just it was being buried by the drugs and the alcohol and the bad behavior. But even your parents knew, scrape that all away. They knew who you really were.
right,
This isn't you,
right,
you know. So now your true authentic self is now this, and people are starting to witness it again. They're like, man, it's like this reunion with an old friend,
right,
right?
right. Yeah, and
That's
it's
awesome.
so it's the best thing for me right now, and you know, I don't have nothing. Like, I don't have the fancy car, the fancy house, or the dream life that I see on
Right.
social media and everything, but what I do have is a second chance,
Yeah.
you know, and that right there is way, way more than the house, than the car,
Yeah.
than anything else material wise, you know. Like, my kids now get to see their father, of their real father, not the big bad person or the lie father, you know, but they could actually really see me now.
Yeah.
And I never before, I used to discipline my kids the same way as my
As your dad.
my dad would.
Yeah.
And maybe even worse sometimes, you know, but going through this and coming out from it taught me so much different.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, I think that's what my parents knew, so it's not their fault.
Yeah.
You know?
because you learned something different.
Yes,
And now
because I
you're
had learned something different.
so because of that awareness and that knowledge, you're now raising them a little differently
Right.
because of that.
Yeah. So now, me being who I am and get to become a good father figure to my kids
Yeah.
is the $1 million for me.
Yeah.
you know?
Jackpot, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That is the jackpot. Wow. So
That's amazing, man. Amazing. So how long have you been out of prison now?
I've been out for two years.
2 years now?
Yes.
Okay.
2 years in December.
Congratulations,
Thank
man.
you.
And you've been clean and sober for 3.5, correct?
I say 3.5 because it's much more longer, but I say 3.5 due to the fact that I was getting close to coming home. The real test is when I came home.
Yeah. Okay, I follow you.
You know, the relapse, those are the real tests.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
to be confronted with things like that and to turn away from it,
Yeah.
that's where the test begins. If you're not confronted with those things in there, then you're just being forced to become sober.
Wow.
But
I gotcha. That's a good way to look at it.
Right.
Yeah, because you're almost forced to do this.
You're almost forced to become
now. Am
sober.
I really going to do it?
Right.
Now that I'm out. Love that.
So
that's powerful.
The only reason why I say 3.5 is because I made that decision in there.
Yeah.
I made the decision in there to.
Yeah.
You know that.
Very cool.
But coming home, I had practiced it a lot.
Yeah.
I don't keep the same friends, but I don't look down at it.
You're right.
Because I know what they are going through, and all I could do is just send my love to them.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
So.
Well, if there's someone listening to this right now who might be struggling, maybe a young kid who, you know, maybe doesn't feel loved or they don't love themselves, what advice could you give them?
My advice to give them is to show the world who you really are. Because you were made perfect. When you were entered into this world, you were created by an image of a higher power, and he made you perfect.
Yeah.
The flaws that you carry are perfect.
Yeah.
So my biggest advice is just show who you really are and to love yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, you gotta love yourself in order to show your love to other people. So
wow, beautifully said, man. Love that advice. Is there a way someone could reach out to you? I mean, even if it's through are you on social media at all?
Yeah,
or?
I'm on social media, not active, but I can answer if people message me or anything.
Yeah. So what's the best way? Is it Facebook or Instagram?
Facebook or Instagram. My Facebook account is Malakai Matangi.
Will you spell that for us?
Malakai. Last name Matangi. And then my Instagram is TribalFit801.
Okay.
So
wonderful.
But if anybody messages me, I'm always willing to help.
Awesome. I love that, man. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your day, and I know you're busy, and I know you rushed down here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Like I said, Bailey has talked such great things about you and says you got to get him on. And now I know why, dude. I am really, really inspired by your story. It's tough because people are going to hear your voice, but I'm sitting here in person with you, and the word that comes to mind when I'm sitting here with you is safe. I feel safe. I feel secure around you.
Thank you.
And I hope you know that. And I hope that if those people that were traumatized because of the act you did previous, if they're listening to this, they will be touched, and they will know that your heart has changed. Right. And I think them listening to this will help, if they are still struggling, to change their hearts around this as well. So we can both pray for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Thank you.
One last thing, if you can do me a favor, will you read that quote out loud?
The most delightful surprise in life is to suddenly recognize there is nothing wrong with you. That's true.
Yeah,
that's so true.
That's what you've been telling this whole time. And it took you a while to discover that.
Right.
But here you are. Like you said, we're perfect. At the end of the day, we have our flaws, but they're part of the perfection, right?
Right.
But I'm grateful that we have you in our world, and I'm grateful that you're in a position now that you're going to be helping and giving back, and I'm grateful you had that spiritual breakthrough in prison. And really, prison isn't a very scary place.
Right.
It's sometimes portrayed that way.
Right.
And I was telling you earlier, I got to speak there over a year ago, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and I
Right.
never felt more safe. But I feel your goodness, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there you go, listeners. Another amazing story from another amazing person, Malakai Matangi. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for, again, supporting this and believing in me. Go make today amazing, because you're amazing. I don't say this enough when I close out these things, but just know that there's nothing wrong with you. Life's amazing. I can't believe how great God is to all of us, our higher power, whatever you want to call it, whatever suits you. But I'm telling you, life's great. Thank you so much. And again, thanks again.
Thank you.